Hey everyone, my name is Jack. Welcome back to the channel. I cover a variety of topics as they relate to real estate, investing, the markets, and pretty much everything as it has to do with personal finance. So if you like that sort of content, be sure to have a look around the channel, and if you like what you see, be sure to subscribe. But today I want to talk about financial independence, and more specifically, a very simple strategy for actually reaching financial independence if becoming exorbitantly wealthy isn't something that you're trying to do, but instead you just want to free up your lifestyle for the long term. Because really there's a few types of financial independence, and the one that's often sold via courses and other expensive products on the internet is usually total financial independence, where you have complete control of your time via your investments and other sources of passive income. It's certainly a nice thing to go for, but it takes a very long time and a ton of money to actually get there, and it's not necessarily something you can do quickly depending on your position. But total financial independence would be if you have, let's say, $50,000 per year in expenses, you have $50,000 in passive income and then a little bit more coming in each year, so you don't have to worry about working at all if you don't want to, because your investments completely pay for your lifestyle. Technically, this is what any retirement really would be. Often people don't actually achieve total financial independence until they are much older, say in their 60s or even 70s. And sometimes total financial independence is supplemented with things like government programs like Social Security, and that a person's really not independent in their own right, but they have other sources of income coming in from the government, which you could argue is not really independent, but that's really beside the point here. If you're trying to retire early and you want to make $40,000 to $50,000 per year in passive income now, you're going to need to put a lot of money up front, potentially over $1 million or even $2 million just in assets to really try and catapult your passive income to the point where you can quit your job if that's really all you want to do. But if you're not making a lot of money right now, that can be very difficult to get that level of assets in such a short period of time if you're really trying to retire decades ahead of what a quote-unquote normal person would do by retiring in their 60s. But maybe you don't want to do that, or more specifically, you don't want to go through all that work to actually get to total financial independence way earlier than you technically need to. Maybe you just want a way to get to retirement more efficiently with a simple investing strategy. This is where coasting financial independence comes in. It's a term used in the financial independence, retire early, or FIRE community pretty often, but it refers to this moment where you have enough assets based on your target retirement date to where you wouldn't actually need to add to them until that date, because all of the compound interest that you'll be earning is actually enough to grow your nest egg by the time you retire. So for example, let's say you want to have $1 million when you retire at 65 and you're currently in your 20s. In order to reach coasting financial independence by the time you're 30, you would need $100,000 parked in some asset that's returning 7% per year. Because if you're making a 7% return each year with a $100,000 investment over 35 years, which would take you to when you're 65, you'd actually have over $1 million by the time you actually reach 65. And that's without adding anything to it after you're 30. You just have that $100,000 there and you are good. You don't have to do anything after that because the investment returns will actually do all the work for you, which is the whole idea of coasting. Now you don't have to work all those extra hours or work a overly stressful job just to funnel money towards retirement. Now, this isn't a perfect strategy, and I'll go over the flaws with it in just a second, but it is a very useful strategy for someone who doesn't want to go pedal to the metal for as many years as they need to reach absolute financial independence. Just someone who wants to let time do a lot of the work for them. You could really call it a middle ground between actual total financial independence and not having any financial independence at all. You're kind of in the middle in that you still need to work to subsist and cover your own expenses, but you don't need to work to the point where you need to have extra money coming in to then fund your eventual retirement, because technically it's already funded. It's going to be funded with time rather than your own work. It's really an illustration of the power of compounding interest, and that the earlier that you invest money, the more time it has to build on itself. The interest starts earning interest, and the interest on the interest starts earning interest as you keep earning more interest or more returns on your investment. But the point is, you take whatever your target retirement year is, figure out how many years you have before you need to reach whatever your retirement number is. For a lot of people, it's about $1 million in today's money, but figure out how much money you would need invested in a lump sum for 30 years, 20 years, however long you have and want to give the money time to grow. And then all you have to do is figure out how to get to that lump sum investment as quickly as possible, because then you can switch to coasting financial independence forever after. This, of course, does assume that your investment in whatever the asset is, often it's something like an index fund or maybe a piece of real estate, it assumes that that works out. There's always a chance that investments fail, even on a broad market market index. You never know what's going to happen in the future. Chances are it'll be fine if past performance is indicative of anything, but technically it's not, since you can't look at the past and say that is definitely what's going to happen in the future. You can try to predict the future, but ultimately that's futile because we are humans. This would be a good time to mention that I am not a financial advisor, and this video should not be taken as financial advice. Please don't sue me. And with coasting financial independence, there's the added risk that you actually underfund your retirement because you haven't been making extra money. When you're making extra money because you're working a job that pays you well beyond your means, then you can actually take that money and put it into your nest egg to reduce risk that you'll run out of money. And having more assets going into retirement is always less risky than having less. But coasting financial independence, by its definition, it does the minimum to get there. What is the minimum number that you need to have invested over that whatever amount of years to actually get a target retirement nest egg? Of course, you can supplement this by adding more money to it at the beginning, more than you think you would need for retirement, but still, you have that problem in that you're not actually making extra money after that if you don't want to. But if all goes well with the coasting financial independence plan, after you reach your lump sum number, you can actually switch to less intense work, or maybe you do more charity work and you work a less demanding job. That's kind of the idea of it. It's not necessarily for people who just want to sit on the couch all day and do nothing. It's really more for people who might not like the career that they're in and just want to have that option to switch to a less demanding career and just one that makes just enough money to pay for their expenses and subsist each month, as opposed to actually funding their whole retirement plan after that. Either way, I would definitely stand by the fact that reaching coasting financial independence is definitely a better position than not going for it at all, because at least you have that option to move down to a less demanding job, and you don't have to take a job just because of the money, because you have your nest egg basically on autopilot if all is going well. And this is actually very similar to the strategy I propose in the One Property Retirement book that I released just this year. Rather than stock investing like a lot of people do to reach coasting financial independence, or FIRE in general, the One Property strategy leverages low interest rate and fixed rate 30-year mortgages to buy a piece of property for very little down, and as you pay down that property over the 30 years using the rental income from it, you're not needing to put any of your own income into the property, but you do need time to let the tenants that you have in that property pay down the mortgage. But by the time that mortgage is paid down 30 years later, you have a property that has no mortgage on it, and you get to keep all of that cash flow for yourself, or you can sell the building or re-leverage it or whatever to get that equity back out. So it's very similar to coasting financial independence in that sense. You make a single lump sum investment at the beginning and then maintain the property using rental income and pay down the mortgage using that same rental income, not your own salaried income necessarily, and then that is your retirement plan by the end. Of course, you run the same risk of lack of diversity if something goes wrong with that property, but that's the general premise. You're taking that lump sum and then letting time do the work for you. In the meantime, you have a lot more options with your career, since you don't have to take a job that has to then pay you to fund your IRA or your 401k or whatever it is, because you already have enough investable assets ready to go that are already growing with time. The real question with coasting financial independence is, how do you reach that lump sum investment? In this case, the $100,000 by the time you're 30 to have a $1 million retirement by the time you're 65. And that's assuming you're putting it in the stock market and it makes 7% on year on average, as it has in the past. Again, there's no guarantee that'll happen, but if history's telling, that's probably what would happen. But that means all you really have to do is focus for a few years, try to reach that $100,000 number if you're in your 20s, and then ta-da, you're done. If you're making $40,000 per year, it might take you a few years, but if you're in your early 20s or mid 20s, you have a few years to work with to try and reach that $100,000 number. And of course, if you undershoot it by a little bit, there's always next year to make a little bit more to throw into that pile and let time do the work after that. I think it's definitely something that everyone should strive for, to have that sort of coasting financial independence option ready to go. And if it doesn't pan out, you can always switch back to try to find a higher paying job after that if you happen to switch down to something that was lower paying because you thought you had enough for retirement. The point is, it gives you some more options than not going for this strategy at all. Having more investments as opposed to less is rarely a bad thing. Anyways, that's all I've got for today. If you like this video, please like it, since it helps the channel out a lot. If you like this sort of content about investing, personal finance, financial independence, real estate, all that great stuff, definitely be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any new updates, since I put out new videos every single week. And I mentioned it already in this video, but be sure to check out the One Property Retirement, about a simple strategy for building your retirement nest egg using real estate. It's a good book for beginners who might want to learn more about how to actually invest in real estate and go through the whole process from vetting a deal, running the numbers on it, to getting through the closing process, and then actually going beyond that with maintaining and renting out the property. If you end up reading the book, definitely leave a review on Amazon since that would help me out a lot. But until next time, take care.